Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Workers.com Staffing Pulse, Insights from the Frontline. I'm Shelby, and I'm glad you've joined us today. Whether you're listening on your commute, during your lunch break, or while planning your next hiring decision, thank you for spending part of your day with us. One of the things we enjoy most about producing this podcast is the opportunity to step back from the daily headlines and talk about what we're actually seeing in the workforce. Every week, there seems to be a new report predicting where the labor market is headed, another article about artificial intelligence changing recruiting, or another discussion about whether employers or job seekers have the upper hand. Those conversations certainly have value, but they don't always answer the questions people are asking every day. Questions like, why does hiring seem so much harder than it used to be? Why did that position stay open for months? Why didn't I hear back after applying? Why did one candidate receive 3 offers while another equally qualified applicant struggled to get an interview? Those are practical questions, and they deserve practical answers. Today's episode is built around that idea. Rather than focusing on statistics or making predictions, we're going to talk about the lessons today's hiring market continues to teach both employers and job seekers. These aren't theories. They're observations drawn from years of working with businesses across manufacturing, warehouse operations, logistics, construction, engineering, skilled trades, maritime, office support, and many other industries. Joining me today once again is Sam.
Hi, Shelby. I was really looking forward to today's conversation because I think this topic applies to almost everyone, whether you're managing a company, leading a hiring team, working in human resources, searching for your next job, or simply thinking about where your career is headed. There are lessons in today's hiring market that affect all of us, and what's interesting is that while technology has changed dramatically over the last several years, many of the qualities employers value haven't really changed at all.
That's exactly right. Sometimes people talk about recruiting as though it's become an entirely different profession overnight. They'll say, everything has changed. Well, some things absolutely have. Technology has changed. Communication methods and job search platforms have changed. Remote interviewing has become much more common. Artificial intelligence is beginning to influence everything from resume screening to scheduling interviews. Those are meaningful developments. But underneath all of that, hiring is still about people.
Exactly. Employers are still asking a very basic question. Can I trust this person to help my organization succeed? Everything else supports that question. The resume supports it, as does the interview, references, and assessments. But none of those things replace human judgment.
That's an important distinction. Sometimes people worry that recruiting has become completely automated. That resumes disappear into computer systems, that people never actually review applications. While technology certainly plays an important role today, employers are still making decisions about people. They're thinking about reliability, communication, problem solving, safety, teamwork, adaptability, professionalism. Those qualities remain incredibly valuable regardless of how advanced recruiting technology becomes.
I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions job seekers sometimes have. People focus almost entirely on beating applicant tracking systems. Now, that's certainly worth understanding. You want your resume organized with appropriate keywords and demonstrating the relevant experience. But once your application reaches an employer, you're back to dealing with people. People evaluate people.
That's right, and employers face similar misconceptions. Sometimes organizations believe that simply purchasing new recruiting software will solve every hiring challenge. Technology absolutely improves efficiency. It helps organize candidates, schedule interviews, communicate, and manage information. But technology doesn't build relationships. People do. One thing I've noticed is that every few years, someone declares recruiting has entered a completely new era. Sometimes it's because unemployment changes, technology changes, or economic conditions shift. And while those factors absolutely influence hiring, the underlying goal remains surprisingly consistent. Employers are looking for dependable people. Job seekers are looking for dependable employers.
That's really the foundation of everything. Let's imagine 2 employers. One company offers slightly higher wages. The other communicates clearly. interviews quickly, treats candidates respectfully, provides thorough onboarding, creates a positive workplace. Over the long term, which organization develops the stronger reputation? Usually the second one, because people remember how they're treated.
Precisely. Employer reputation doesn't begin on someone's first day. It begins with the very first interaction. Sometimes that's the job advertisement, careers page, or how quickly someone receives a response after submitting an application. Every interaction contributes to an employer's reputation.
And job seekers have reputations too. That's something we don't talk about enough. Employers remember candidates who communicate professionally, who arrive prepared, ask thoughtful questions, show genuine interest, and follow through on commitments. Those experiences influence future opportunities.
That's very true. Professionalism isn't something employers evaluate only after someone gets hired. It begins immediately. Something as simple as returning a phone call promptly tells an employer something. Confirming an interview, showing up 5 or 10 minutes early, being courteous to the receptionist tells them something. Every interaction creates another piece of the overall picture.
And none of those things require years of experience. That's encouraging for people entering the workforce. Professionalism isn't limited by age, education, or job title. It's demonstrated through behavior.
Which leads us into another observation we've been discussing quite a bit lately. One of the biggest changes we've seen isn't necessarily what employers are looking for. It's how quickly they have to make decisions. So now let's talk about hiring speed, because I think this is one of the most noticeable shifts across many industries. Qualified candidates simply don't stay available very long anymore.
That's absolutely true. I think people sometimes imagine candidates applying for one position, waiting patiently, and hoping for a response. In reality, strong candidates are often interviewing with multiple employers simultaneously, especially in manufacturing, warehouse operations, engineering, skilled trades, maintenance, commercial driving, and construction. The list goes on.
That's right. And if someone has the skills employers need, there's a very good chance multiple organizations recognize that, which means hiring becomes something of a race, not in a negative sense, but in terms of responsiveness.
And I want to be careful here. We're not suggesting employers rush into poor hiring decisions. That's not the message. Thoughtful hiring remains incredibly important. What we're talking about is eliminating unnecessary delays. There's a difference.
Sometimes delays aren't caused by careful evaluation. They're caused by scheduling or paperwork, uncertainty about who should make the final decision, or interviews being postponed multiple times. Those delays often have nothing to do with the candidate, yet they still influence whether that candidate remains available.
I've seen situations where an employer conducts an excellent interview. Everyone agrees the candidate would be a great fit, but then nothing happens for another week, maybe 2 weeks. By then, the candidate has already accepted another opportunity, not because they preferred another employer, but because another employer made a timely decision.
And that's something many organizations have started recognizing. Hiring speed isn't about lowering standards. It's about respecting everyone's time. When employers communicate clearly, schedule interviews efficiently, and provide timely updates, candidates feel valued, even if the final answer isn't the one they hoped for.
Yes, and I think that's what we'll talk about next, as hiring speed naturally leads into something even broader, the overall candidate experience, why communication, transparency, and respect have become competitive advantages for employers, and why job seekers also play an important role in creating a successful hiring process.
Today, employers hear the phrase candidate experience. Sometimes it sounds like another business buzzword, but when you really think about it, candidate experience is simply the collection of every interaction someone has with your organization before they become an employee, or even if they never do. It's the first impression, the application process, communication, the interview, and follow-up. Together, those moments tell candidates what it might be like to work for your organization.
That's exactly right. Sometimes employers think candidate experience only matters if they're trying to recruit executives or highly specialized professionals. But honestly, it matters whether you're hiring a manufacturing engineer, a forklift operator, an administrative assistant, a maintenance technician, or a project manager. Everyone notices how they're treated.
And what's interesting is that candidates don't necessarily expect perfection. They understand hiring managers are busy, schedules change, and businesses have priorities. What they usually appreciate most is communication. If there's going to be a delay, tell them. If interviews are being rescheduled, explain why. If another candidate has been selected, let them know. Most people can accept disappointing news. What frustrates them is not knowing.
That's right. And from the employer's perspective, communication is one of the least expensive improvements you can make. You don't need to buy new software. You don't necessarily need additional staff. Sometimes it's simply about setting expectations. Something as simple as saying, "We'll contact you by Friday," even if we haven't made a final decision. That small commitment immediately reduces uncertainty.
I think that's such an important point because communication demonstrates respect. Candidates invest time preparing resumes, researching companies, completing applications, taking assessments, scheduling and preparing for interviews, following up afterward. They've made an investment too. Acknowledging that effort builds goodwill, even if the outcome isn't the one they were hoping for.
And here's something employers sometimes overlook. Every candidate is also a potential customer, future applicant, referral source, or professional connection. Even candidates who aren't hired continue talking about their experience. They tell coworkers, friends, family members, professional associations. Sometimes they post reviews online. Employer reputation isn't built only by employees. It's also shaped by applicants.
That's become especially true today because information travels so quickly. One positive hiring experience often reaches dozens of people. Unfortunately, one negative experience can spread just as quickly. Organizations that consistently communicate well build trust long before someone joins the payroll.
Now, while we've talked about employer communication, I think it's only fair that we also talk about candidate communication, because this really is a two-way relationship.
Absolutely. One of the biggest misconceptions some job seekers have is believing that once they've submitted an application, everything else is the employer's responsibility. But employers are paying attention too. They're noticing who responds promptly, who confirms interviews, answers questions thoughtfully, and follows through. Professional communication begins long before the first day of work.
We've all experienced situations where someone seems very enthusiastic during the application process. They're excited, they schedule an interview, everything looks promising. Then suddenly, no response. Phone calls go unanswered, emails aren't returned, interview confirmations never arrive. That's become common enough that employers even have a term for it: candidate ghosting.
And while that certainly happens, it's important to recognize that the opposite also occurs. Sometimes employers fail to communicate. Sometimes candidates stop hearing updates. Neither situation benefits anyone. The strongest hiring relationships develop when both sides communicate honestly and consistently.
Very true, and professional communication doesn't have to be complicated. If you're running late, call. If you've accepted another position, let people know. If your availability changes, communicate it. Those simple actions demonstrate maturity and respect. They also demonstrate something employers are trying to evaluate: reliability, because communication during the hiring process often reflects communication after someone is hired. If someone consistently follows through before becoming an employee, employers naturally feel more confident about how they'll perform once they're part of the organization.
One topic we've discussed many times on this podcast is the growing emphasis on skills-based hiring. We're seeing employers place greater value on demonstrated ability rather than relying exclusively on traditional credentials.
That's been one of the biggest shifts in recruiting over the past several years. Employers still care about education. Degrees remain valuable. Certifications remain valuable. Formal training absolutely matters. But increasingly, employers also ask, can this individual actually perform the work?
That's right. And think about manufacturing. A resume might list years of experience operating CNC equipment. That's helpful. But employers also want to know, can this person read blueprints, maintain quality standards, troubleshoot problems, work safely, and adapt when production requirements change? Experience becomes much more meaningful when it's connected to demonstrated capability.
The same applies across warehouse operations, construction, engineering, office support, and virtually every industry. Employers are hiring people to solve problems, not simply occupy positions.
At the same time, technical ability is only part of the equation. Imagine two candidates. Both have nearly identical qualifications, similar experience, and both interview well. What often determines who receives the offer?
Usually the things that don't appear on the resume: dependability, communication, attitude, professionalism, safety awareness, adaptability, the ability to work effectively with others. Those characteristics frequently become the deciding factors.
And that's encouraging because those qualities are available to everyone. You don't need another certification to become more dependable or expensive training to improve communication. Professional habits develop through consistent behavior, showing up prepared, listening carefully, being respectful, following through on commitments, accepting feedback positively. Those things matter.
I think one mistake people sometimes make is separating technical skills from professional skills. In reality, employers evaluate both together. Technical ability gets your attention. Professional behavior builds trust. Long-term careers usually require both.
Another trend we've noticed is how quickly workplaces continue changing. Technology evolves, equipment changes, software improves, processes become more efficient, entire industries adapt. That means continuous learning has become part of career success.
I really like thinking about learning as professional maintenance. We maintain equipment, buildings, and vehicles. Our skills deserve the same attention.
Exactly. And continuous learning doesn't necessarily mean going back to school for 4 years. Sometimes it's earning a certification, completing online training, cross-training within your current organization, learning new software, or improving leadership skills. Every investment adds another tool to your professional toolbox.
We've seen manufacturing become increasingly automated. Warehouses now rely on sophisticated inventory systems. Engineering teams collaborate digitally. Artificial intelligence is beginning to support scheduling, recruiting, documentation, and administrative tasks. People who continue learning tend to adapt much more comfortably as those changes occur.
And employers notice that mindset, curiosity, initiative, a willingness to learn. Those characteristics often indicate someone will continue growing after they're hired. Organizations aren't simply hiring people for today's responsibilities. They're investing in individuals who can help the business succeed tomorrow.
Exactly, and some of the strongest candidates we've seen over the years weren't necessarily the ones who knew everything. They were the ones who genuinely wanted to keep learning. That attitude often becomes one of the biggest predictors of long-term success.
Next up, we're going to talk about another subject that continues influencing nearly every hiring decision: workplace flexibility. We'll discuss why employers are approaching workforce planning differently, why temporary and temp-to-hire staffing continue to grow, and how flexibility can create opportunities for both businesses and job seekers.
Years ago, many organizations approached hiring with a fairly simple mindset. If business increased, they hired more employees. If demand slowed, hiring slowed too. While that basic idea still exists, today's business environment has become much more dynamic. Customer demand can change quickly. Supply chains shift. Large projects begin with very little notice. Seasonal production ramps up. Unexpected opportunities appear. Employers have realized they need workforce strategies that allow them to respond just as quickly. When people hear the phrase flexible staffing, they sometimes think it only benefits employers. But in reality, flexibility creates opportunities for everyone involved. For employers, it provides the ability to scale operations responsibly. For job seekers, it often creates an opportunity to gain experience, learn new skills, and demonstrate their abilities in a real workplace.
And that's an important distinction. Temporary employment isn't what many people imagine it was 20 or 30 years ago. Today, many temporary assignments involve highly skilled work: manufacturing, engineering support, warehouse supervision, logistics coordination, maintenance, technical trades, office administration. information technology. Many of these assignments become long-term careers.
We've seen it happen countless times. Someone accepts a temporary assignment because they want to get back to work. They perform well. They show up every day. They communicate professionally. They contribute to the team. Before long, the employer says, "We'd like to bring you on permanently." That wasn't necessarily the original plan for either side. It developed because both the employer and the employee had an opportunity to evaluate the relationship in a real working environment.
Exactly, and that's one of the biggest advantages of temp-to-hire staffing. It's often described as an extended interview, but I actually think that's too simplistic. It's really an opportunity for both sides to determine whether the position is the right long-term fit. The employer evaluates technical ability, teamwork, attendance, communication, and adaptability. The employee evaluates leadership, workplace culture, safety practices, training, and career potential. Both sides learn something valuable.
And that's important because hiring isn't just about filling today's opening. It's about building tomorrow's workforce. Making thoughtful hiring decisions improves retention. It improves productivity. It strengthens workplace culture. It reduces turnover. Those benefits extend well beyond the initial hiring decision.
One thing we've noticed over the years is that candidates today evaluate employers just as carefully as employers evaluate candidates. That wasn't always the case. Years ago, many job seekers simply wanted an opportunity. Today, people certainly want employment, but they're also asking additional questions. What's the work environment like? How are employees treated? Is there room to grow? Will I receive proper training? Does leadership communicate well? Will safety be taken seriously? Those questions matter.
They absolutely do, because people aren't just accepting jobs anymore. They're evaluating workplaces, and employers should welcome that. Organizations that invest in employees usually have good answers to those questions.
That's right. And we've talked before about onboarding. Sometimes employers think onboarding ends after the first day or after paperwork. In reality, onboarding continues well beyond orientation, helping new employees understand expectations, introducing them to coworkers, providing clear training, answering questions, offering feedback. Those experiences influence whether someone remains with an organization.
And when employers invest time during those first few weeks, employees often become productive much faster. They feel more confident. They make fewer mistakes. They're more engaged. It's one of those investments that continues paying dividends long after the hiring process is complete.
Now, let's talk about something that's fundamental to virtually every industry we work with: safety. Sometimes people think workplace safety is only relevant after someone starts working. From a recruiting perspective, that's simply not true. Employers begin evaluating safety awareness long before the first day on the job.
Absolutely. Think about the industries we work with: manufacturing, construction, warehousing, logistics, engineering, transportation, to name a few. In all cases, safety isn't an optional skill. It's part of professional competence.
That's right, and an experienced employer understands that technical ability alone isn't enough. Someone may know how to operate equipment, but do they follow procedures, wear required personal protective equipment, recognize hazards, communicate unsafe conditions, understand that protecting themselves also protects their coworkers? Those observations matter.
And I think it's important for job seekers to understand something. Employers aren't looking for perfection. They're looking for awareness. If someone demonstrates that they understand the importance of safety, asks thoughtful questions, and respects established procedures, employers notice. Those behaviors build confidence.
That's such a good point. Safety isn't about memorizing regulations. It's about developing habits, looking before lifting, inspecting equipment, keeping work areas organized, reporting hazards, using PPE correctly, following lockout procedures, recognizing heat stress, preventing slips, trips, and falls. Those habits become part of someone's professional reputation.
And here's something we've seen repeatedly. Organizations with strong safety cultures often have strong workplace cultures overall. They communicate better and train more effectively. Employees watch out for each other. Supervisors encourage questions. People understand that everyone shares responsibility for creating a safe workplace. That attitude often extends into every aspect of the organization.
Earlier in this episode, we talked about technology, artificial intelligence, automation, digital recruiting. Those innovations will absolutely continue changing how businesses operate. But there's something interesting we've observed over the years. The tools evolve much faster than the qualities employers value.
That's a great observation. Think about the conversations we've had today. Communication, reliability, adaptability, professionalism, safety, continuous learning. Those qualities have remained valuable regardless of what technology happened to be available.
Exactly. Technology helps employers identify candidates more efficiently. It helps organize information, automate routine tasks, and improves communication. But technology doesn't replace judgment, leadership, or trust.
And it certainly doesn't replace relationships. At the end of the day, people still want to work with people they trust. Managers want dependable employees. Employees want supportive managers. Customers want reliable service. Those expectations haven't changed.
I think that's reassuring. Sometimes all the discussion around new technology makes people wonder whether traditional professional qualities still matter. The answer is yes. Probably more than ever, because as technology handles more routine work, the uniquely human qualities become even more valuable. Critical thinking, communication, leadership, creativity, empathy, problem solving. Those aren't becoming less important. They're becoming increasingly important.
True indeed, and that's encouraging for both employers and job seekers. Technology should be viewed as a tool that supports people, not something that replaces people. Organizations that combine modern technology with strong leadership and positive workplace culture tend to perform exceptionally well.
Throughout today's conversation, we've talked about hiring speed, communication, professionalism, candidate experience, flexibility, workplace safety, continuous learning, and the role technology continues to play in recruiting. At first glance, those might seem like separate topics, but they all point toward the same conclusion. The organizations that consistently attract and retain great employees aren't simply reacting to today's hiring market. They're preparing for tomorrow's workforce.
That's a great way to put it. Sometimes businesses approach hiring as though it's an event. A position opens, someone leaves, applications come in, an offer is made, problem solved. But the most successful organizations don't think that way. They view recruiting as an ongoing business strategy. They're always strengthening their reputation, always improving onboarding, investing in training, and looking for ways to become a better employer. That work continues whether they're actively hiring or not.
Precisely. And one of the things we've learned after working with employers across so many different industries is that organizations with the strongest hiring results usually have something in common. They're intentional. They don't wait until they're short-staffed to think about recruiting. They build relationships. They develop talent. They improve communication. They create workplaces where people genuinely want to stay.
And interestingly, job seekers who experience the most career success approach things in a similar way. They're not only searching for jobs when they need one, they're building careers all the time. They're developing new skills, growing their professional network, learning new technologies, keeping certifications current, updating resumes before they're urgently needed. Those habits create opportunities long before someone submits an application.
Let's leave employers with a few practical ideas they can begin applying immediately. The first is simple. Look at your hiring process through the eyes of a candidate. Ask yourself a few questions. Is it easy to apply? Does someone acknowledge applications promptly? Are interview expectations clear? Are hiring managers prepared? Do candidates receive updates? Those questions often reveal opportunities for improvement.
I'd also encourage employers to examine how long hiring decisions actually take. Not how long they think they take, but how long they really take. Measure the time between an application being received, the first interview, the final interview, the offer, and the start date. Sometimes organizations discover delays they didn't even realize existed. Removing unnecessary steps often improves hiring outcomes without lowering standards.
Another recommendation is to continue investing in onboarding. We've talked about this on previous episodes because it's so important. The hiring process doesn't end when someone accepts an offer. That's really where the next stage begins. The first few days and weeks shape an employee's confidence, productivity, engagement, and long-term success. Strong onboarding isn't just orientation, it's the beginning of employee retention.
And don't underestimate the importance of communication. People appreciate honesty. If business conditions change, say so. If hiring timelines shift, communicate that. If expectations evolve, explain why. Employees and candidates don't expect perfection. They appreciate transparency.
For job seekers, many of today's lessons are equally practical. Continue investing in your skills, whether that's learning new software, earning certifications, improving communication, cross-training, or developing leadership abilities. Every new skill increases your professional value.
I'd also encourage people to remain open-minded about opportunities. Sometimes careers begin in unexpected ways. Temporary assignments, project work, seasonal employment, temp-to-hire positions. Those opportunities often introduce people to industries they hadn't previously considered. Some of the strongest careers we've seen started with someone simply deciding to say yes to an opportunity that wasn't originally part of their long-term plan.
Professionalism continues to matter every single day. Show up prepared, respond promptly, ask thoughtful questions, follow through on commitments, be someone others enjoy working with. Those qualities build reputations that often open doors throughout an entire career.
And finally, never stop learning. The workplace will continue changing. New technologies will emerge. Industries will evolve. New opportunities will appear. The people who remain curious, who continue learning, who adapt thoughtfully, will continue creating opportunities regardless of economic conditions.
One thing I appreciate about conversations like today's is that they remind us of something important. Despite all the headlines, economic uncertainty, new technologies, changing industries, the fundamentals of building successful organizations and successful careers remain remarkably consistent. People want meaningful work. Employers want dependable employees. Both want relationships built on trust, communication, professionalism, and mutual respect. Those aren't temporary trends. They're timeless principles.
That's so true, and as technology continues to change how we recruit, artificial intelligence will continue improving efficiency. Automation will continue transforming many workplaces. But none of those innovations eliminate the importance of integrity or accountability, teamwork, and leadership. Those qualities continue shaping successful organizations every single day.
I also think employers and job seekers should find encouragement in that. Sometimes the hiring market feels unpredictable. Sometimes it feels overwhelming. But success rarely depends on chasing every new trend. It usually comes from consistently doing the fundamentals exceptionally well. Communicate, learn, adapt, work safely, respect others, and build relationships. Those habits continue paying dividends regardless of what the economy happens to be doing.
Shelby, I think that's really the perfect way to summarize today's discussion. The hiring market will always evolve. That's inevitable. But organizations willing to invest in people and individuals willing to invest in themselves will continue finding opportunities to succeed. Those fundamentals don't disappear. They simply become even more valuable as workplaces continue changing.
Well said. And that's exactly why conversations like this matter. Whether you're hiring your next employee, preparing for your next interview, managing a team, or planning the next stage of your career, understanding these broader workforce trends helps you make better decisions with greater confidence. The labor market will always change, but preparation, professionalism, and continuous improvement will always create opportunities.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Workers.com Staffing Pulse. We hope today's conversation has given you practical insights that you can apply whether you're building a stronger workforce or building your career.
If you're an employer looking for qualified talent, flexible staffing solutions, temporary staffing, temp to hire, direct hire recruiting, payroll services, or workforce planning support, visit Workers.com to learn how our experienced recruiting team help businesses across industries find the people they need to succeed. If you're searching for your next career opportunity, explore current openings at jobs.workers.com. New opportunities are added regularly, and our recruiting team are here to help connect qualified candidates with employers across the country.
You can also visit the workers.com community on our website for additional articles, hiring trends and insights, career resources, industry updates, and previous episodes of the podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, we'd truly appreciate your support. Please follow the podcast on your favorite platform, subscribe, leave us a review, give the episode a rating, like the video, and share it with colleagues, friends, and anyone who could benefit from today's discussion. Those simple actions help more employers and job seekers discover the podcast and allow us to continue bringing you practical workforce insights each week.
Thanks again for listening. We appreciate you spending part of your day with us, and we look forward to having you back for our next episode as we continue sharing practical staffing, recruiting, and workforce insights from the front line. Until next time, take care, stay safe, keep learning, and keep moving your career or your organization forward.